And we're here.
Hey, welcome again to another episode of Night Midnight. It's me, Elgin, once again, and my friend.
I am Jason.
Today we are talking about megalithic and monolithic structures, both, I think. There are a few different ones we're going over, just seeing who built them, if they were built for that matter, and who done it kind of a thing.
I've been fascinated with this is probably the thing that got me most interested in anything weird, maybe. I mean, so you're saying 6,000 years ago, it was easier to build with gigantic rocks and form fit them together. And people are like, no, it couldn't have been easy. And I go, then they wouldn't have done it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, me looking into it, it was actually pretty interesting how they had um, just different ways of approaches thinking that it was being built. I like how they kind of all the scientists always talk about how it was impossible for them to move these stones and impossible, but it's like, but they're everywhere. They're in on every continent. There's almost every continent there is some sort of giant, stone structure that is unexplainably large.
Very,
And that
yeah.
was a kind of a cool deep dive for me to get into it.
It really isn't just one place. Yeah, I think that the Middle East, Baalbek, in Lebanon, does have the absolute largest single cut stone. I think it's the pregnant stone, right? I believe.
Yeah,
In
pregnant woman stone.
the pregnant woman stone. And that, and it was cut. There's some smaller ones around, but it's like it kind of looks like it was just dropped
Almost
and
looks like
walked
they're
away
talking about it.
from.
Yeah, like it was an obelisk and they just started to make it and we're like, we got something else to do. It's over 1,000 tons is their estimate, obviously, because,
I mean,
not like
yeah,
you can throw a bathroom scale into that bad boy.
we don't have the technology to lift it up today. You know what I mean? Like okay, we have enough crane trucks? Yes. Are they all too big to fit around the block? Yes. So there's an issue.
Exactly.
There's an issue with just the mechanics of it. And even with the pyramid, people saying that they were um built with giant ramps, and yet, the other people, I don't know how, obviously, but then the other side wants to say the ramps would have been more matter, would have been, it would have taken up, it they would have had to be bigger than the pyramids themselves to accomplish what we are talking about. And so where's the evidence that there was ramps? And that's the thing that'll get me. Like, it's kind of like, well, sure, ramps. Honestly, of course, it makes sense. But then the people who are staunch against it, they look hard to make sure they don't find ramps. And the people who believe in ramps can't
Right.
find them either.
Exactly. Exactly. The thing I always think is funny is we always look for the solution in the future that we use our technology versus how they would have done it back then. Like we're trying to think like, oh, ramp and a crane and all this sort of stuff. Like there must have been some way for them to move them without the ideas that we have now because they were moved. Like we can prove that they came from a quarry from, thousands of kilometers away, but we can't prove how it got there. It's like, well, stop thinking of it as, the typical thing in my mind, like you had to have a ramp or a cart or some sort of wheel. It's like maybe in my head, it's like maybe they just had thousands of people and constantly were dragging that thing across, you know, logs, something super simple. You know what I mean? Logs on top of logs facing perpendicular against each other. You know what I mean? Stuff like that, or even just stones. And they figured out how to use stones to cut the stones to make them slide to make them move. You know what I mean? Like it could be just way more simple than the way that we always try to figure things out. Like, man, you should just use technology to make this simple. It's like, well, they didn't have that.
Or, or they did, there are some theories that they did, I mean, there are some, you
Or
know,
their sense of technology. You know what I mean?
I mean, ultimately, as soon as a monkey uses, a hard rock to chip a softer rock into a sharper shape, then
Yeah, tools or technology, right? Yeah.
you know what I mean. Fire, fire is the computer we're talking on right now. Were it not for that first capturing and staying warm and cooking the meat, we would not,
Right.
you
Right,
know, I
exactly.
mean, ultimately, whether or not we were created or not, no matter what, the first technology, I'm not talking about any kind of evolution or even if it was or it wasn't. The ultimate thing is the first of all technology just is fire. And
Right,
it
right.
begets everything else like a storm. Look where we are. You know what I mean? They had a different approach. I completely agree. I like
Yeah,
this.
it's I just like to think that maybe simple man or man before us didn't try to do everything the most simplest way. They try to do it the way that was the most efficient way. You know what I mean? Not necessarily that, okay, look, it's going to be, it takes us 50,000 men to move this rock, but this is the only way we know how to do it, as opposed to, hey, we can build a catapult or whatever we need to, to move this over and just have one guy do it. It's like, no, they just use sheer force because they were bigger. Or it brings us back to, like you were saying in, I think, episode 4,
I think
where,
one and
there were
two and
one,
four.
yeah, where
I think I know where you're
we,
going. Yeah.
yeah, where we are not the giants,
No,
or
we
we
are
are
the
the giants,
giants. It
right?
is
We are the
us.
giants.
So we're not going to
Exactly.
find Nephilim because people think the Smithsonian are hiding the proof of giants, and I'm starting to think that they're hiding the real human beings, the little ones.
The
You
little ones.
know,
That
I,
actually
I,
brings me
that's
to.
just
I'm glad that
I'm
you brought up
silly.
hiding too,
I bring
right?
that up too much. That's not like I'm not going to harp on that forever, but that one just it popped in my mind that very first time. It's
That brings
funny.
me up
It's
to that
funny.
to this to one of those structures that we were talking about when you said hiding. Uh, it reminds me of the coral castles. Is the one that I was looking up and doing a lot of research
I
with it.
love I love it. Yeah.
Super cool, really really interesting about how this guy, left a place that was not the best. I mean, his family was doing okay over there, but not the best environment for them. And they came here, and he completely revamped himself and made himself into something, that's a legend now. Like, people know about him all throughout the world, like, just for him doing his artwork. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I may have been in my early teens when I first heard about Ed Leeds Skelton, and I was still young enough to think that maybe magnets, you know, maybe there were secrets in there, and want to hope and
Well,
want to
yeah,
hope, and
yeah.
ultimately yes, the things that people can do with magnets. I mean, the technology that they've done. He's basically like QR code. The way they use a laser to make every little dot in different directions magnetized northwest everything, and it's static on one side, and it is a key lock. It is like the most precise key lock ever that I don't remember where I saw it, but it's like a magnetic lock. It's like a QR code, but where the black spots would be north, and then the white spots would be south, and then it would be uh, uh, so like that wouldn't line up with any other magnet
Gotcha.
except the one lock it is supposed to.
Well, the one thing that I like too that I was reading about that is they talk about what we were talking about, hiding and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Like, when the government found out who he was and what he was doing, like, they basically started messing with him to the point where he was like, "All right, I got to move." So Coral Castles has been moved already, or moved, and he had to move those structures, and he did it in the
He
dark
did
of
it.
night, so to speak, by himself. You know what I mean? There's actually another YouTube channel. I forgot the guy's name, but he basically goes through. He lives in Florida. He went through and he showed how this guy created all of these rocks, and he showed literally he went primitive. Well, I mean primitive. I say that 1930s. You know what I mean? There were still electricity tools, cars, for God's sake, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But he goes back and he shows how he primitively could have cut these stones and lifted them and did them, and even with the electricity, and they have that he has that electromagnetic pulse ring basically charges batteries constantly and runs many machines all at once. So it kind of shows how he could do it all by himself, because he had 20 machines running off of one battery grid. All it could be running for literally 24 hours because it's constantly recharging
But it
itself.
was
It
a
was
hand
awesome.
crank.
No, so it's like a constant electromagnet that, like, the fields loop back on themselves and constantly recharge the battery. And you do have to start it with a hand crank, you're right. And then once it's started, it's constantly in a cycle. And they've since taken that apparatus out of the museum. Even if you look up the museum now, that apparatus is not in there. That guy who the YouTube channel, he copied it because he used to work there and he built one in his own garage.
I would very much like to see this. And maybe this is because I have literally, I mean, shit, 20 years of my life, 20 plus years of my life, I have known about this. I didn't buy, but I downloaded his books, right? They might have been like a $9 book that I bought, in which they're little pamphlets that
Right, right. They're on
and
on the electromagnetism and all that sort of stuff.
yeah,
And some of them talks about how he was I guess his family owned like a funeral home, and they made the stones for grave sites and stuff like
yeah.
that. So he was basically, he knew how to do that before he even got here.
And that's one thing. That's one thing to be able to make a headstone, which very well may still. I mean, a headstone, sure, maybe even £1,000 if someone commissions one of those beautiful spires, or even just a regular headstone, like a nice big headstone, I guess. And for that time, people were opulent. It wasn't just a marker, it was something to remember me by, mentality.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you could definitely have a 5, 6, 700 pound
Oh,
block
they
of
were bigger than
granite.
that.
You know what I mean?
There's
So
pictures of him from Universal Studios where there's 6 or 7 people, his family, standing on top of this stone
but,
that his family's going to cut down into gravestones and grave markers. Excuse me.
but that's what I mean. It's one thing to take that stone and to cut it into grave markers. It's another thing to start moving that stone around, which is what he ended up doing alone. Like
Right. Yeah. 100%.
like it's one thing to be able to cut stone. Cool. That's actually not important right now because he was moving things.
Well, also
Nobody
he.
nobody comes forward. I've looked into this so long. I would love to hear somebody say, all right, my dad was on the crew. It's been long enough.
Exactly.
I'm allowed to speak at this point. No one's ever done that. No one's ever come
Well, I
forward
mean,
to
you
call
gotta you gotta
BS
think
on this
too.
guy.
You got to think too, in this time period, 1920s, you know what I mean? There weren't any cameras, that there weren't the telephone and stuff like that wasn't as big as it is now. You know what I mean? Newspaper was just your town. You know what I mean? So when this guy started doing it, it wasn't news back then. It was just like, oh, crazy Ed at his quarry is cutting and making big stones. You know what I mean? He's weird. No one said until they started showing up and seeing these gigantic stone structures, and they're like, "Well, how did you do that? Because you're just out here by yourself." You know what I mean? And that's one of the big lures and crazy, questions about how he did it, is he was there by himself the whole time. And that I'll have to send you the link to that YouTube channel. He
I do
shows
want to
how he
see
made
that
like a,
one.
a tripod system that
I've
it's
seen
like
the tripod.
like 3 or 4 tripods inside of themselves, and they all lift up these giant timbers to becoming like these timbers that can lift 1,000-pound stones. And he shows how he did it. He does everything with 1920s machinery. It's pretty interesting how this guy did it, and he basically tried
And this
to.
guy genuinely shows how to recreate
He
moving
shows
these
it.
giant megalithic
Yep.
size
No,
stones.
no. He shows how you can cut a stone that big. He's got a big giant boulder that he cuts, and he easily lifts this boulder that was over like 1,500 pounds. He lifts it with one hand using the chain hoist. Like, he just simply pulls down, and the stone's hovering in the air.
I mean,
So it's
that's
like,
what
man, if he's
pulleys
able to
are
do
for ultimately. So, I mean,
exactly,
I know that if you
I mean,
had
in theory,
strong enough rope and proper pulleys, and if you have the right, lever and fulcrum, everything that we do still has the most basic of roots. Everything ultimately, you know what I mean? Even an internal combustion engine, it still has to, you know,
Still lever and fulcrum, like
it's
you're
still a
saying.
lever and fulcrum. We're
Still,
just like,
yeah.
we're just harnessing an explosion to get the lever
To
and
turn that lever and
fulcrum.
fulcrum.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
not kicking pedals. That's it. We're making explosions. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, and I mean they had cars back then too, so it's like
yeah,
if he was able to lift it up off the ground, who's to say he couldn't put it on the bed of a truck
I'd be
and then move it,
fascinated to see.
you
I'd be
know?
fascinated to see. But also, there is the time in which
And that
people say,
area,
"Oh, we just turned our eyes around and counted to 10, and then he was just."
yeah, I mean in that
I mean,
area, it's the same thing like you're saying. Like it happened over a matter of time. It wasn't like, oh, he moved all of Coral Castle overnight. You know what I mean? Like they talk about that
no,
in
but they
in
say
what
he would load up the truck in an afternoon.
yeah, they
Him by
say
himself, he would
him by
load up a
himself loading all the
truck,
tools.
5 foot, what, 5 maybe, at the most,
Little guy, yeah.
a very, a slight, a man. I mean, this is the time of the Depression, and this guy came from Europe, and for the time, everyone was a little small. You know what I mean? Honestly, you had been dealing with famines and malnourishment, and everyone. It's not that we're bigger.
Or fatter.
we're fatter. We have an overabundance of nutrition, and it is, yeah. Honestly, we're healthier as hell. But
I don't know
everyone,
about healthier. I mean, all of them
I
lived
think,
for how many years past what we live now? Life expectancy is going down, not up.
I don't think so. I don't agree with that. Monoliths, monoliths.
Right? I was like, oh, it's another subject.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. No, we're not doing that.
So another one
The
that I was
pharaohs
talking to you.
lived a long time, and then never mind. I'm joking. Being stupid, trying to make a dumb joke about the lifespan,
Nice tie in.
and
I
it
get you.
failed. Yeah, bad tie-in. Terrible.
Tough crowd, me and you.
Ugh, I know, right? Um,
Another one I was looking up. Hang on one second. I'm gonna bring
yeah.
it up here. It
No push to talk. You dropped your push to talk, didn't you?
oh, I'm sorry. It was a city that
Told
was
you. Proof positive.
in right. Yeah.
Yes.
No,
All
I
right. This
actually
is the
clicked
clip.
off of it on
This is the
accident.
clip. Exactly. The proof positive episode time. Yes. I knew it would be so soon when push to talk would prove wrong.
It's got to be
Sweet
done.
justification, righteous. All right, go on. What were you saying?
It's a city that they found in the North Sea between UK and Denmark, and they've recently found it. I think it said the 80s. Yeah, well actually they dug something up or they were dredging it. This is back in the 1800s. Came up with a spearhead, and that was their first indication that there was something there. And then they started doing research. Obviously, back then there's not that much research, but there was a whole city that they believe is down there. And now they found out that yes, there is a city, and they're exploring it so much more because now there's oil companies, which I think is funny. The whole oil companies are helping find this research out, and the reason why yeah, it's ironic, like the people the people who are destroying the earth are also the people helping us find out why these cities are gone, melting
Mm-hmm.
ice caps, yada yada. But that's a whole nother thing too. But it was very interesting. They started showing how there's this there they think that there's a correlation between that and Atlantis and this city. I believe it's called. Let me look it up again. Hang on a second. I'll be right. Actually, let me look this up.
Yeah, no worries. People have been talking a lot about different places in Atlantis. I know you and I spoke a couple episodes ago about uh, the Azores possibly being a great spot for it to have something. That was not my idea. I'm not, I think I had heard that from a few different people, but it always did make sense. Randall Carlson is one, especially it being just past the Pillars of Heracles. I mean, don't get me wrong, that eye over in Mauritania, it's bedrock that looks like concentric circles. They didn't build bedrock up for Atlantis. It's kind of a weird.
Right,
It's kind of
right.
I don't understand. Like concentric circles make absolute sense on a spherical planet to me in a lot of different ways. Not in like a jerky way. I think it's a beautiful thing, and it's great, and it's a I definitely hope we find a place that has like the welcome to Atlantis sign on like the outskirts of town to prove it
Well,
that
that's
we finally
exactly what
found
they're
it.
thinking. This island is like a welcome city into Atlantis. It's called Dogger Island. It's pretty interesting. It's one of those things where they're showing all these new um, technology, and there's even like peat moss and stuff that was hidden in not hidden entombed in clay pots that they're bringing up. So they're having DNA that they can test from thousands of years back. Obviously, our carbon testing has been proven to be garbage, but I mean, still, the idea that they have DNA that they can test from that old, that's some Jurassic Park sounding stuff.
Who would have figured that like a lot of nuclear weapons testing was going to destroy what could have possibly been something more accurate if we would have just been able to chart when all of the meteors would have come. If we could chart meteors, then we would probably have been able to
Right,
figure out. We
right.
probably would have been able to figure out a workaround for carbon dating, but because of nuclear weapons testing, just throw it out. I hate that. I hate that.
Yeah, we'll figure it out later.
I used to be big into carbon dating, but you know, that's the other thing about stone. Can't carbon date stone anyway. And
I'll
that's
say,
what
yeah,
makes these structures so
these structures are so curious because
yeah.
they were at first they were thinking, oh, this city had to be, somewhere around 2 to 3,000. Now they're like, oh, it's 8,000 or more old. The city of in Dodger Island or Dogger Island. They're saying that it had to be at least 8,000 years old, and they found 2,000 different objects now that they know are um, uh, only based in Europe in that area. That's why they're calling it Europe's Atlantis. Basically, like this city existed in a spot in between Denmark and UK that was once an island that the I forget the name of that map that we were talking about earlier. The map
The
shows
Piri Reis
where,
map.
yeah, exactly. It shows that there was an island, not necessarily a city, but
Mhm.
there was an island on it, and
Hi
that was
Brazil.
a stretch basically.
Hi
It was pretty
Brazil.
neat.
Wasn't that was it over there by like the UK up just like
It's
north over by
literally in between
Ireland?
UK and Denmark, literally right in between.
Yeah, like I think but just like off to the side a little bit maybe. I think
Yeah,
that
off
might
the
have been High
coast, like
Brazil.
in the middle of the sea.
That's another sunken island story. High Brazil. Is that what you mean? But Hybrasil. No
Yeah, I know
Z.
what you're talking about.
Yeah.
This one's they're not considering this one High Brazil. They're talking about this one being Dogger Island because
Yeah.
there's a few different cultures that called that area Dogger Island. It's still actually called the coast, I guess, is called Dogger Sea. So that's how that works. It's interesting. It's not
What is
exactly
Dogger? Have they found some sort of evidence that these people
it's
were
yeah, like
referred
these
to as the Doggers or called themselves such?
not the people so much the area was called that because there's another map from Denmark that mentions the same thing and it references it to Dogger Island and how they had shipping and trade with Dogger Island.
We're
And
not we're
then
not
they
we're not getting mixed up with like the dog-headed people, right?
no, I'm not talking
Okay.
about
I'm
dog
just making
people.
sure. Just
It's
making
just
sure.
called Dogger Island. No.
Just making sure.
No.
I mean, when sorry. The dog-headed people, hey, we can save that for another episode, but I mean, really quick, I just
Dogger Land, excuse me, Dogger Land, not
Doggerland.
Dogger Island.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you could send that to me, I want to take a look at that because that is something I don't know about that. I know about the idea of Atlantis being, I mean, the easy answer is, oh, it was somewhere in the middle of the Mediterranean, and they just
The
said it
Bahamas,
was the
Mediterranean, yeah.
Bahamas. But I like Indonesia. I like that theory.
There's
So,
actually the Amazon, some of the Amazon things. I went on a little bit of a dive on that one too, where they think it was in the middle of the Amazon where you can't get to it.
so,
Instead of it being buried by the sea, they're thinking sea of jungle, not sea of
mhm.
water,
Yeah,
because of translation.
that's one of my favorite theories, and I don't remember. And a lot of times when this particular kind of thing comes up, I hear it from like um, well, I love him, Graham Hancock, uh, and I think he was talking about that. It appears that we make compost, right? Compost is better than just dirt for growing, whatever. That they had
Assumedly, but yeah.
assumedably. Let's spell that one out. Assumedably. I like it. Seasoning it up. I still say that always, always will.
Sorry, I threw you off.
It's all right. No, I love it. What was I? It was the
You were talking
zoinks.
about compost being better
So,
than
in the area that is now the Amazon, when they do the lidar, I think did we bring up this on an earlier episode? Anyway, they can do lidar and they can see that under this thick layer of jungle are pyramids and cities, and you know and now there's kind of credence to that. First couple groups of people riding up the Amazon talking about cities and people all the way up, and then just 10 years later it's completely overgrown. They're like, those guys are liars. Now, I think they were saying that it appears that they have the greatest, most concentrated soil. Like, it's almost like they bred a particular kind of bacteria, particular kind of a culture that would super grow plants and
which would explain it being
would
hidden. You know what I mean?
well, then they think, obviously maybe they got.
Or overtaken anyway.
Exactly. Like if your whole society was kind of a nature, I don't want to say worship, but nature in tune with that kind of level to where you've you've created a technology of super growing compost that, and then as soon as you get exposed to some European germs, that was true, then they died apparently, is what it would seem. And then there's nobody hanging out around, like, except, because they find like these cordoned off areas where, like, it looks like this was the vat, this is the silo right here, this is the silo where they were making this stuff. And then
Huh.
and they have like these silos where they're like compact filled with this particular type of thing, which has become so amazingly fertile. And then, so if there's no one there to tend it, it just started growing and growing and growing. And then, not to mention also that the Amazon gets a ton of nutrients from the Sahara Desert. It's like that is the most.
That's even one of the places that they talk about Atlantis being found too, like in the Sahara Desert, because at one time it wasn't a desert. You know what I mean? So
At one time,
that's
it
a
was
pretty
a
interesting
giant
theory there.
lake. Yeah, there were
Yeah, and they
lakes and
talk
savannas.
there. It was interesting too when I was reading up on the North Sea one, and they talk about Bimini and all that,
Yeah,
the Bimini Road. They
that
talk.
one.
There is
Yeah.
a huge bunch of conspiracies about these two places now, because all the scientists and all the
Mm.
academia people, they were lying about it, and they got caught in the 60s about lying about it, and then caught again in the 80s about lying about it, and now nobody believes anything they're saying, because it's like they were going around telling people that, oh yeah, these couldn't have been cut by man and humans, and it was dated this time, and then they went back and changed it. Oh, it might have been, we're not sure. And so now people are like in uproar. Like there's a lot of YouTube channels about Lost City. It's called Lost City Academia conspiracy, where anytime they find a city that they can't explain, these megalithics or megalithic structures or buildings or lost cities underwater, they always have a conspiracy where someone says something, gets caught, and then have to change what they're saying or change their theses about it. It's pretty interesting. there's maybe like 15 different channels about it where they go into in deep depth detail, where it's like, man, you really start to think like how much of this is a cover up for the way that they thought humans evolved or came around, you know what I mean, where they thought we were from. And now if it comes forward that they were wrong, it ruins people's careers. And
And
that's why
that's the problem.
it's
It's
like, yeah,
ego again.
exactly.
It's ego
Ego,
again.
yeah.
It's you know it's it's the it's the human taint on what should be pure, which is science. Like, like we
Right, the
can.
search for knowledge, and you're ruining it with your ego because you don't want to get dragged through the mud saying you were wrong, instead of just being like, oh, I'm glad we found it out and knew, I was ignorant, I was trying to learn it the best way I could. You come off like, no, 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 that's not what I said. It's like, come on, man.
I think there's nothing better than being wrong. Like, I start to get scared if I start being right like over and over and over in a row. I'm just like,
I mean,
oh
all of science is wrong, you know what I
no.
mean?
About
That's what
anything,
science
about
is.
anything. You don't learn.
Science is all about learning.
You're supposed to want to learn, so there's nothing better than being wrong, because that means I get to do more experiments, or
And
whatever.
figure out
I
why
get
you
to
were wrong,
figure
by
it
the way.
out. And you
You
know
know
what I
what I
mean?
mean? That's the whole process.
I wish I had the brain to be able to like just be able to, I don't know, like something so much I want to research its chemical composure and look at its atoms and see every little bit that ever made it up. I mean, sure, I can look through a microscope. I don't know what the hell it is. You could put a t-shirt under there. You could probably put a diamond, and I'd be like, mm-hmm, I concur.
Same. All
Mm-hmm.
right, same.
Yes.
Looks good to me. That's me. Looks good to me. Let's do it.
The mineral deposits, are they stable?
Right. Anybody, nobody,
Anyone?
just
No
me,
one?
just
Just
me.
making
All
sure. All
right.
right. Unnecessary fear. Ha ha ha. Easy now. Anyway, yeah. I wouldn't know what I'm looking at, but I think it'd be cool to know. Hamilton Morris. I hope I said his name correctly. Hamilton. He has a TV show. He's like a chemist. Probably more. I hope I didn't do that wrong. He studies, things that people call drugs, and medicines, and things that people eat, and uh, a lot of these, he'll reference the ancient cultures, but now I'm diving away from it. Sorry, I went down that way because with megalithic constructions, we're back now.
There was
Bimini
another one
Road.
too. Go ahead.
Oh,
Go
I,
ahead.
I I I remember what I was going to say before. I think the reason why people hated on Bimini Road so much is just because Edgar Casey, who was the psychic, who said that if you go look right here, you're gonna find something, and that's where they found it. And then, like,
Yeah, that was one of the big things too.
it doesn't matter if you want to like deny psychics, or
I do. I'm
and
just kidding.
that's fine. No, no, no.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I
I'm
know.
not even. I'm not even bringing it up. I'm like I just mean like whether you were the type of person to say I do not believe in this or I do believe in this, just pat the guy on the back and say
Great guess, or
you
wow, you
great
knew it.
guess, or
Either way,
or
wow,
or
you knew it. You got it.
or now I'm a believer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like,
Or
who cares
whatever.
either
I mean,
direction? Now
either
we get to
direction.
learn something.
We're at the point where, like, that's what I was trying to say to Henry when I think he was trying to talk about, like, but why would they even be wasting the energy to get here? And again, why would they be building rocks, into the sky? Because that wasn't the problem back then.
Right, that wasn't the issue.
The,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
issue wasn't the technology to get all the way across the universe. If there are aliens here, they figured out their way. Why would anyone waste time worrying about how, if they're
Yeah,
actually
what's the
here?
how doesn't matter. They're already here.
Right? Who cares how? Kill them, take his ship, we'll
Yeah,
find out.
yeah.
Anyway, sorry. I'm ready.
Grab what you need. Let's go.
I'm ready. Ready, boss. We're gonna go out
It
there.
was cool too, like
We're gonna get
about
ourselves
Bimini
some
Road.
aliens.
Like some people are saying it was a, some people say it was a road. Some people say that it was a dam. So like, or not dam, sorry, seawall dam.
Yeah,
To
like a
stop
breakers.
yeah, like breaker. Exactly,
Yeah,
to stop the waves from crashing up on, because the way that it's designed, it's not like a straight road. It goes straight for like, I think they said 100 kilometers and then makes a J turn to the right. And essentially that's just, built exactly how the waves are crashing around there, and that's the sand formations all follow, yeah, the Bimini Road, which that's where they're like, oh, the current in the water, like maybe that was a breaker, for a city civilization that knew, hey, there's a lot of waves coming, and eventually the waves got too big and overtook the city. It's a simple solution and knocked down the walls, and the walls were perfectly up and down. Now they're perfectly laying down. You know what I mean? So maybe not so much a road, so much as it was like they're saying a
I mean,
wall.
science has clearly shown that the Atlantic is getting bigger and the Pacific is getting smaller. Sad as it
Yeah,
is.
and
And
even
yeah, and there you go. So if it was getting bigger, I mean, just again, 5,000 years ago, sorry to cut you off, but like 5,000 years ago, if it was 20, 30, 40 feet down, breakers.
well, here's a Gipper. It's only 18 feet down from the surface. Bimini Road is.
Yeah, like my
So
estimation, yeah. Then that's even what
if
three
you go
thousand
back
years ago.
3,000 years, it
Yeah,
probably wasn't underwater. It maybe not wasn't a city anymore, but
yeah.
probably wasn't underwater. You know what I mean? Probably was sitting in a mud flat now because people are like, geez, our feet are getting wet. Let's get out of here. This city's done. You know what I mean?
You think this is too controversial a question for my friend, Sir Elgin, night host? Do you
Bring it
believe
on.
in global warming? What do you think?
I am absolutely a believer in it. I am maybe not a believer in how everybody thinks about it, or not everybody. I shouldn't say that. Maybe not as drastic as what they think, but I think it is definitely a thing that is happening.
I think that if you talk to any scientist, they will tell you that we have ice ages on this planet, and we have droughts, and we have burning, scorching times. I think that, yeah, humans aren't great, sure. I mean, I don't like to just sit there and, just shit on humanity for just all of our mistakes. You know what? That mentality won't encourage anyone to try. All right. So, like, for everything else, you know, lost my train of thought. Damn, I was just getting like,
I'm okay with
you
blaming
know,
all of
I
humanity.
don't want to. I
I'm
don't want
totally
to
fine
blame
with
all of
that.
humanity. I don't want to just blame all of humanity. I don't know. I
And I
just,
can't blame any animals. I can't blame anything else. So my brain's like, yes, you guys messed it up. Try to fix it, or be happy with your death.
I mean, it's gonna happen. No one gets out alive. No one's figured it out. And if they have, then like I feel like we would have already been living
Use the
in a
Stargate and
time,
got the hell out of here.
or like the history books would say that like the vampire war or like the whatever it is at this point in time, we at least claim to have about 2022 years of history that people feel pretty damn confident about, for the closer we get to now, obviously. But we got 400 years that some people say didn't even exist.
Yeah.
I like that theory, but I don't know. I don't know, man. I wanna think that humans built these things, and they figured out a different
I
way.
think
I,
it's
I want to think they just figure,
exactly. I
again,
think they just had an
technology,
easier,
but
simple way of doing it. Yeah, that we're overcomplicating a simple situation. You know what I mean?
almost every culture that I can think of off the top of my head, a lot of them have story about a music or a song, or I think Merlin may have sang Stonehenge into place, or the people of Easter Island may have sang a song and the Moai walked into place. But a
What
lot.
about those three statues that are in Egypt too? That they say when well, there's actually records written down with it where when the wind or the sun would shine on a certain way, the statues would sing and people would travel to come see it. That's
I don't
pretty
remember that
interesting one
one.
too.
That one's not in my mind. I
Uh,
don't remember. Is it
I
still
can I
standing?
can look it up really quick. Yeah, it's still standing, but there's three of them, and they're not as pronounced as what they were. They don't talk about them as much, and you can't like go walk up and visit them, but you can see them from the road. It's one of those monuments that like this not city, the government of that area is like, yeah, no, you can't use this for tourism. You can see it, you can view it from the road from afar, but you can't bring people up close to it, because they even talk about it being like people would take pilgrimage across the desert to come see it. It was that amazing of a structure. I'll look it up
Really?
really quick.
Yeah, I'm very curious about that. I'm always interested in these kind of accounts. You know what I mean? When there are people and it is so inspiring that they go on a pilgrimage. Honestly, it really is. It's something that people have always done. Throughout so many different cultures. Like, I mean, hell, even if you want to, I did my new age, I went to Burning Man and, I've gone to my festivals and, take the ride all the way out there, and that's like the low end of the spectrum probably. And it was me who did it, but it's not like some deep, meaningful thing, but that's wild, that's
It's
wild.
the Colossi of Memnon.
The Colossi of Memnon,
Yeah, yeah.
not the Colossus of Rhodes.
No, Colossi of Memnon.
Colossi of Memnon. Is this Agamemnon?
Yep, one and the same. It was named after him.
Interesting. So the ancient Aegean king, huh? Hmm.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting story that they talk about. Like, those were found and then they dug them out, and then the pyramids were found and they just completely forgot about those. Not necessarily forgot, obviously, but it was just kind of like, oh, leave them alone, don't touch them. Here's the stories behind them. Don't mess with them anymore. Leave them alone. And they I mean, they preserved them. They kept them up, but it's not like a place that's like you can't go walk up to them and touch them like the stones, and all that sort of stuff, because they don't want it eroded. It's such a like sacred place. It's
Yeah.
pretty interesting.
I I don't know. I understand, don't touch. This is fragile. Hiding things is always weird. That's the part that always gets tough to understand. Why has it got to be hidden at all? Why why the hiding of knowledge? Like, what would it benefit? If no jokes.
Well, sometimes I think it's not so much a hiding of knowledge as people's superstitions, because of their religious beliefs and things like that, that you lose some of that knowledge, because it's like, hey, don't touch this. This is sacred ground. You know what I mean? It's kind of like we were talking about the Skinwalker Ranch. Like, weird things are happening because it's sacred ground. Don't touch it. Don't go there. It's a cursed place.
I
You
mean,
know what I mean? But
yeah, but I mean that again, to me that falls under the same thing. Like when we were talking about um an ultimate purpose of life, and I was saying, I was like, I'm not sure there's ever a true purpose. There's always the reason, right? There's the reason why human beings we got here, right? Thanks, mom. Thanks, dad. Don't want to think about that anymore. But anyway, you know what I mean. But the purpose, the grand purpose of, like, am I Galahad Percival? Am I to find the Grail? Is that me? Like, no. They were not assigned these grand things. I think too that when a people live on a land, you can ascribe a holiness, a purpose to a land that at some point, like, yeah, okay, if you're a visitor and everyone says that's a pretty special spot to us, don't trash
I
the
mean, I
place,
agree with you. It's
and that's
For
just,
me, it's kind of like grave sites. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, don't go digging up grave sites for funsies sake. Like, stay out of there. That's sacred. That's where someone's loved one passed and is buried.
yeah,
But as far as it like being like, oh, okay, hey, this piece of land was touched by so and so's great grandfather from 10,000 BC. We don't walk there anymore. It's like, what? Like, come on now. You know what I mean? At
and
some point, give me some information why we don't.
no,
Besides just we don't.
again, I think we talked about Mohenjo-daro before, and Mohenjo-daro has so much nuclear radiation there that it seems like a nuclear bomb went off, and not the same kind of radiocarbon signature that comes from a meteor even or something else, but the side of the mountain is covered in glass and people like shielding young ones from a blast, and that my idea is just, again, I always like to give humans a lot of credit. I think that maybe 2,000 years ago, by the way, nobody knows what lived around Mohenjo-daro because everything around Mohenjo-daro has been dying from radiation poisoning seeping out anyway. So, like,
Right,
why
right.
don't we have any memory of what was going on?
Maybe because everyone whose
It's
hair was dying. Yeah,
dead.
it's dead. Yeah, it's
It
dead.
has
The
been
story hadn't didn't get told. You
irradiated.
know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the times when when we lost the person before the cancer with the chemo, you know? It's like
Right. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
whole
100%.
record of this place, except a couple scarred parts of land and radiation from what? Who knows? An irradiated meteor? When's that happened? You know what I mean? Like there's radiation everywhere, and it usually like dissipates or something. But like this place is like stained the same way as the Nevada desert, in the same way as too many places. It's like, what if someone just they did have science, and they split an atom, and they really didn't understand. They had great noble intentions. They didn't know where it was going to go. I think that if people can build pyramids into the sky or Machu Picchu, where none of that stone comes from that mountain, anywhere near that, you
Well,
know,
speaking of stone, that's another interesting thing that I found too in doing some research about this. A lot of these megalithic stones are limestone.
limestone.
A lot of them are limestone. It's crazy how many are forms of limestone or granite. Um, and then marble was the other one. It's just like those are limestone's not really that hard of a rock, but
No, limestone's not hard,
it's
but
so prevalent, you know what I mean?
in
That
South America, I
it's
believe almost all of them are granite of a sort, even
yeah,
andesite, like the
yeah.
hardest of granites, right? I only know
Yeah,
that because
super hard granite, harder than regular granite. Yeah, that's what they talk about it being like not non-erosive, but less erosive than regular granite. And
uh,
it's interesting because it takes so much rain out there
yeah,
that it's still standing. And if they were saying that it's less porous than the granite in Europe, because the granite in Europe is
would
found
chip,
in
yeah,
arid areas.
yeah,
You know what I mean? It would
mm-hmm,
chip and break and fall apart. That
yeah.
was the one thing I liked. And then all the limestone structures, they're saying they're mostly in moisture areas where there's a lot of water because it's able to soak up and hold weight and soak up moisture and water and hold weight. Also, easier to cut because it's not as dense. So you could make these gigantic, you know, I forget what it's called, obelisks and stuff
Obelisk,
like that.
yeah, megalith.
Because
Mm.
yeah, megaliths and obelisks and all those giant towers and stuff like that, because it was easier for them to cut. You could literally cut it with a saw now. If you had some sort of metal blade, now you can cut it with that because you know we have that technology. But that also
I
makes me
mean,
think like
water pressure ultimately is
what
another thing.
exactly
Water
like they
pressure is
understood
something.
the Egyptians understood how to do Egyptians and Romans
Yeah.
understood how to do sewage and water and open piping, you know what I mean, to get the sewage out of the city. And they knew that, hey, we have to replace this because the water runs through it and destroys this stone, so we got to replace parts of these piping, and they knew that because erosion, and they found that out after years and years of using that. Who's to say that they couldn't figure out a way to cut these giant stones and not move them per se, but cut them where they are, you know what I mean, and move only the ones they need to move.
I imagine if you I'm gonna this isn't too much of a conspiracy theory, but I just think this makes sense. I think if you know how to build an aqueduct and a trebuchet, you can accomplish the
You're gonna
water
figure it.
pressure. You can accomplish like some sort of a hydraulic that can water laser
Pressure water.
pressure wash, clean lines in the rock
Right,
and get
cut a
that
nice
thing
clean
up,
line. Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
Well, I mean, they use chisels, hammers and chisels and stuff like that now. It's not like they have gigantic technology. They do have big giant saws that they use to cut the stone, but they still, like, if they want a good clean cut, they do it the old school way. They
Which
drill a couple holes, put spikes in it, hammer the spikes down, and then it pops the rock apart. It's crazy that we use technology from Stone Age to crack open stones,
if it ain't
but it is the
broke,
most effective way. You know
if
what I
it
mean?
ain't broke,
Without destroying the face of the rock.
yeah.
That is the most effective way. They're saying, like, when they cut um, marble and stuff like that, they don't want to destroy the grains and all that inside of it and the lines. So instead of using a saw blade, which would leave saw marks, they use drill bits and cut in a
Which
certain depth to
I think
where they know, you know.
you think if for marble, I think if that was happening, they have to do something else with marble because wouldn't you just have marble, something for the bottom of a fish tank at that point? If you had something like that, they have to use
No,
something.
it doesn't like shatter. It like chips off in big giant slices. It's
And,
pretty interesting.
I've seen perfectly square marble and everything, and like that is
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it erodes weirdly. It's not like any other stone, too.
yeah, it's very odd. It's very odd. It's not one of my favorites. It's pretty sure, but I don't know. Depends.
Yeah, and there it was another one that I was looking up, and there's a sandstone sculptures. I think they're in Malta, and they were near
Mm.
the
The
temples, the nine temples.
the large hip
Yeah,
woman
yeah,
one. Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
and
is
they
that
were
the one with the
like,
big eyes? The ones with big eyes? Or
no,
no.
it's just one that has like nine little square holes, and they were trying to say, well, you know, scientists and stuff were trying to say it is the oldest um, stone structure ever erected. That's what they were saying before. Now they've kind of changed their story. Obviously, again, that ego thing, but there was a sandstone structure that they designed for erosion, so they knew they had like a bunch of different stones out, and they knew they watched. Basically, they say that they watched how much the time it took for that stone to erode, so they knew which types of stones to use. Legitimately, like a sacrificial rock. You know what I mean? Like that to me, that just proves that they knew what they were doing, that it was a human thing. Like, hey, let's set this thing up on this windy ass mountaintop.
If they know how to
There's
have
four
like
pillars of four different types of stone.
that
Let's see
is
which one gets
science.
destroyed.
That is the
That's science at its
definition
simplest
of
form.
science. That's not even simple. How the fuck do you there are steps to get there. There are steps
It's
to
like,
get there, man.
why would you think about, hey,
You got
there
to be
must be
leaps
better
and
building material?
you've got
You
to
know what I
be
mean?
you got to be leaps and bounds past being afraid of who controls the wind. You got to
Right. Yeah,
understand it as a
that too. The
force of
god of the
nature.
wind.
Do you
Yeah.
see what I mean? Like
Yeah, you're understanding
if
that, hey,
you're
the wind and the water erodes this, so we want something that's going to last forever.
if you believe,
Let's build with these better
I
materials
think
instead
that if
of,
people
you
thought that
know.
it was always gods, I think they'd be too worried about offending him. Well, we can't use the water because the water god would punish us if we use his body to. I don't know. I mean, people get
No,
feared.
I think it's one of those things where some cultures would probably feel that way, but I also think there would be some cultures that would be like, hey, God provided us these better stones this time. Let's use these better ones. You know, we found these stones. Let's use these now because he provided these for us. You know what I mean? He controls the wind, so let's see what else let's see why he gave us different types. You know,
Do you have a chance to take a look at uh and, and it's got a very interesting name to it. I believe it's in Central or South America. Saxwe Human, or something. It kind of sounds like Borat, Saxwe Woman. Like oh yeah, nice. But it's like another Mayan or Aztec place that is, it's like the Temple of the Sun. I can't. I don't. I'm probably butchering these names
it's in Cusco, Peru.
in Cusco, Peru. Yeah, Cusco. Hey, you know why I should probably know this? Because
Emperor's New Groove.
that's right. Yeah, I was literally in my head.
Cusco.
I was in my head trying
I
to
read it,
think
and that's
about.
all that I could hear was the song.
It's
It
it,
said,
right?
Disney, goddamn you!
As soon as you said Cusco, I knew exactly where on the map I was supposed to be thinking of. That
That's funny.
hill where he was going to
They knew
build.
what they were
Son of a
doing.
bitch. That's so funny. But in Machu Picchu, I've always liked that. I think I mentioned before that they have like a particular grade. Uh, a lot of these cities or temples or whatever they were when they would build high up, and they had to make sure that water is precious unless we go all the way down to come back up. And so they would have the ever so slightly like 3-degree slope so that very slowly water would go to all around the mountain, and that would help them irrigate and also hang on to their water. They channeled it. It was like absolutely sorry, absolutely like perfect mindset about how to live within nature. I mean, obviously they're not still there to tell us how it all went down. It could have been a social experiment, or it could be halfway done and they're just like, what were we thinking?
Right? That was a fail. I one thing actually, once you brought it up, I looked it up. They were one of the in the 15th century.
Mhm.
They're one of the only builds that didn't use mortar between their stones because they cut their stones so tightly together, like you were saying,
In
they can
Peru,
hold
you find that a
water.
lot. You're gonna
That's
find that a
insane.
lot in Peru.
Two pieces of stone together that are watertight.
Not just
Think
that,
about
but
that precision.
yeah, I know. But have you even seen the way that the shapes that they are?
Yeah, and they angle
7 and
them.
8
Yeah,
sided, and the angles. It's insane.
yeah,
How
they
did this
angle them
happen?
perfectly to catch the water and
Is
to
this your
move the
first
water
time seeing these?
away from the city. No,
Okay,
I didn't know the name of that one. I have seen it before. I actually have been to the city of Peru up there, but I didn't know
you
that
you
that
you,
was
you went to
that's a
Machu
little bit
Picchu?
farther away.
You
Yeah,
did. I did. I have seen you. Man, what is that, like 15 years ago? You went or something like that?
yeah,
Long
about
time ago.
15 years, something like that. Yeah, a
Again,
little
for
while,
anyone
but
who's just new to the show, if anyone is out there and looking at, I've known this guy for a very long time, and I remember there's a picture of you, and I don't remember a picture of you and your brother, but I remember a picture of you,
yeah, it was me and
and I
me and
remember a picture of your brother. Yeah,
Me and Lamar went.
yep,
Yep.
yep, I remember that. I wasn't there, but I remember a picture. Yeah. All right. Anyway.
Yeah. They do talk about that on the tour. Actually, funny enough, where
Mm-hmm.
they talk about how the stones were cut so tightly together that you can't fit like a baseball card between them.
You can't fit a
And
thin
then
piece of paper, a hair,
yeah,
nothing.
and then they were talking also about like the tops of the pyramids there
Mm-hmm.
were known to be gold,
And
and that's why all of them have no tips. They're all squared off because
because they were
whenever they would
stolen.
move, yeah, whenever
Oh,
they would move, they were either stolen, conquered, or they would take the gold tops with them. That's like the legend. You know what I mean? They don't know because obviously, but some of those places when you walk up to the top of it, if that thing was topped with gold, man, it would be like 60 by 60 feet wide. Like they're huge. They're not like small little pyramids. The steps are like 5 foot tall steps. They're not like the pyramid. Well, actually, some of the pyramids are like that, but it's legit gigantic stones. You don't realize it till you're actually up against them.
I very much want to see a lot of these places. My wife and I have been talking about Baalbek because um, of going to visit her family over in Lebanon and everything. And yeah, I told her, well, before we ever met, the place Baalbek, which is not far from her family. I was like, yeah, I've wanted to see this place as far back as I can remember. I
Yeah,
got
that temple there is pretty awesome. Actually, it talks about one of those in that same. I'll send you that same YouTube link.
people say it's a Roman temple, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
Roman on top. Underneath that is something else, and underneath that is something
exactly.
else
There's three different. They say it's three different cultures of people have built this thing, and they
on
think
top and on
either
top.
on top of each other. Yeah, either they think that they were conquered or they were deserted, and then the next group of people came, found it, tried to build on top of it, got conquered, or was deserted again, and it happened again a third time. It's pretty interesting.
And these megalithic, gigantic, 100,000, 2,000. I can't remember what are the pregnant.
750
750,
750. No, the pregnant one is 100,000 tons. The
100,000
one
tons.
the ones in the temple of Baal you're talking about, the columns that are there, the pink columns, there's 750,000.
How do you pronounce that? Baal?
I think it's Baal, yeah.
Baal? I don't know.
Or you might be right. I'm
I'm
not
not
sure.
sure. I didn't even say it out
Either
loud.
way, I mean,
I
no
just said your
disrespect to
way.
the people there.
I don't know. No, I was just curious. You always hear things in a bunch of different ways. I've always heard them a bunch of different ways. You know what I mean? Like growing up, and there's religion, and so you hear things the way like your religion people say things, and then you go to school, and you're just like, my
Right?
world history teacher says
Moses.
Artaxerxes. Anyway, it's
It
like
literally Moses, two different things. I was like, what? What are you guys talking
Moises,
about?
blatantly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like what?
Moises, Moises, huh? Uh, yeah. Well, we're gonna be able to go ahead and do this thing where I think then I hit this one, and then boom. if anyone has any interesting questions, or not questions, I mean, honestly, I'm not the guy who has the answers, but if you have a story, I'll answer your question. Honestly, give me a question. Why not?
You know,
If you have like anyone know anything about megalith?
one thing I
Bad
definitely
question.
want to see
Evil
is
question.
Stonehenge. Like if anybody's out there and has
Yeah.
been there, I've never been there. I've been to UK a bunch of times and Scotland and all around there. I've never been to Stonehenge, and I've heard so many different things about that place, about it being a clock, about it being a weather forecaster, about it being a landing site for the aliens. It's an amazing place. Also, another one I heard is if you take Stonehenge and the Easter Island and some other place, and you basically draw lines on the map, it's the same triangle. It puts the Bermuda Triangle in the middle of that. It's pretty interesting. Which I'm like, I'm not so sure about that one, but it's a pretty interesting concept.
That, I think that is ley lines, right? Where
I
the
believe it was something like that.
I
Yeah.
think ley lines is the idea that the reason why there are megaliths in the first place is because they are acting as anchor points on Earth's natural occurring energy fields, at which appear in these geometric lines around the Earth. and and it's not exact whenever you try to see someone like, I think I figured out how the ley lines actually work, but even with inside, it's like a cell. You go inside and it's like, oh well, there's smaller ley lines within these giant ley lines that connect. So I haven't really felt too confident with that, but I also don't think they exactly line up, all of them,
I mean,
depending on who. There's
it's
so
kind of like
many
that
megaliths.
movie number 23 to me. Like you can make it fit if you do the math well enough. You know what I mean? That kind of a thing. But the megalith stuff, like you were talking about on the ley lines, like I like how they're bringing up too. Like that was how they were able to be built the way they are built too, because of how the Earth reacts to those stones or those particular items. When you were able to move them, is a certain time during the year. So like all those items were moved in the same time period of the year because of how the Earth is rotating using those ley lines and all that. I was like, that is an interesting concept to think.
That
Like
is
you,
interesting.
your stones weigh less in the winter because the way that the Earth's magnetism around the sun, or whatever. Like that's insane to think that they were able to figure that out, and we can't. You know what I mean?
To me, that would mean that it's almost like we really are in a world that is like, not the TV show. Sorry, I'm not going to get into that, but like the book, like Wheel of Time, where ages come and go. There's a golden age that's followed by a famine age, and then people remember how good, and they glorify it to be better than it actually was, though it was great. And then these repeating cycles. I mean, it- yeah, yeah, these repeating cycles
I
are just
like the
really
idea of
going
that
there.
though. Like,
I like that. I think that is kind of a closer approximation. I think that, oh, how come we don't see them using paper in Egypt? It's like, well, because those things are probably 10,000 years old, and paper would have died 9,800 years ago. All of their paper would have turned to dust if it.
set a piece of paper outside in Vegas for longer than 2 weeks, it's gone
It's gone. You can't have it.
or completely illegible. You know what I mean?
You find out, I didn't know this was carbon paper. It wasn't.
It wasn't
It
exactly.
wasn't carbon paper. How did it get this? Insane. It's charred. It smells
Exactly. I
mosquito.
mean,
It
not
smells
even
like
not even
mosquito.
the summertime, even in the wintertime, just sand erosion and everything else. It'll destroy it, you know?
The land wants to take back what it thinks it belongs to it. And you know what?
We're
We're
just visiting
all made of the same stuff.
and we've run out our welcome.
Well, yeah. Oh no, M. Night Shyamalan's The Happening. It
Oh
happened.
yeah, that's right.
Remember
I
when that
forgot
movie
about that.
happened? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It was. Who did I go see that with? Did I see that with my dad? I don't know. I think I was like, no, I saw Speed Racer with my dad. I don't know who I saw The Happening with. Maybe I did see it with him. I don't know. used to go see movies with him. But yeah, it was not the best. Again, I think I said it before. Lady in the Water. I don't care what anyone has to say. That one really is his best. That one's like there really was magic in that. It wasn't,
I enjoyed that one,
that one was
but
good.
yeah, I mean, also like other places that I really want to visit too. The temple in Jordan, the one that's cut into the wall. Like they
Petra,
know.
Petra. Yep.
Um, yeah, Petra. Yeah, thank you. Well, Jordan isn't that where that is? Anyways,
Yeah, it's
uh,
actually right near Nabatea, which is right where that's where my wife's family is. Yeah, so like
oh,
that's that.
okay. I
Apparently,
want to
the
visit that
Nabateans are
place, even
from
though
there. Yeah,
they know that it was made by humans. But just looking at that, it's like another reason. Like, why would you do that? Just because you can, kind of a thing. Like, look how amazing, how beautiful that place has been because someone said, I'm gonna carve it into the side of a mountain so it can be there forever. You know what I mean?
it
That's kind of like the whole Roman way. Like, they could have built regular little homes. You know what I mean? But
is very
instead, they built
Roman.
yeah, they build coliseums out in the middle of nowhere, by the way, not nowhere near where there's a city where it's easy to do it. They're like, well, we have all these thousands of slaves, put their stones on their back. Let's see if they can make it happen. You know what I mean? Just cocky as hell and amazing to show what humans can do, when they put their mind to it, ego or not, ego aside, you know what I mean? Like it's still an amazing feat to see something like that. That's crazy. Or there's other places like in Peru where they have those the hanging not hanging gardens,
No, you're not the Hanging Gardens.
I forget what it's called, but they basically there's this whole culture that lived in the mountainside and some still do live there. You know what I mean? And they carve their homes into the mountain. And there's only a certain amount of visitors that can go there a year because they don't want their culture disturbed. You know what I mean? And it's awesome. You can't bring like certain stuff there too because they don't want their culture disturbed. Like you were saying, like, hey, that once that information is gone,
Mm-hmm.
once the story's not told, it's not told anymore. Once everybody's dead, there's no one to tell how we moved these blocks and how, you know what I mean, how we built the pyramids. Like all that information's gone. It's not like nowadays where it's a digital footprint and we can record it and put it on all of the streaming services, which are on by the way,
Yeah,
or
tune on
all the
in.
social media. Tune in, give us a ring, tell us if it's going good or if you want to speak up and say anything too. We don't they don't have that luxury. It's pretty cool that we do, but how imagine how amazing if we had some form of way to go back and look at how they did that, like how much that would change our technology nowadays.
I I do wonder. I wonder if it, who gets to go back, who gets to look, and is it another situation where it turned out it was Dick Dastardly the whole time? Yeah, 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 yeah. Now I know. Now I can use the ancientest of technologies to exploit the future.
Right.
Yes.
Of course, it's bound to happen.
And
I think that would be cool though. Like if there was some way to
there's
look
my
back
Muttley over there.
where everybody looks at it, you know what I mean? Where it's just open source, so to speak, where one day you turn on television and it's just streaming on everything, and it's like, oh hey, this is how we did this, so stop questioning it. You know what I mean? That would be cool.
Wasn't that Gene Roddenberry's Earth AE or something? What was it called? It was
Earth AE2, Earth
no,
2.
no, not Earth 2. No. Gene Roddenberry didn't do Earth 2, but which is not a detriment. Earth 2 was phenomenal. Clancy
Loved Earth
Brown,
2, yeah.
thank you. Tim Curry, thanks for showing up at the end of season 1 and then being there in season 2. I still don't trust you. And one more thing. Stop eating my sesame cake. Anyway, every time I think of Tim Curry,
Right.
every time I think of Tim Curry, and and it's because of you, because you love that movie so much.
Herkimer Hamolka.
Herkimer, was that the guy's name?
That was his name. Yeah, that was Tim Curry's character. Herkimer
Herkimer
Hamolka.
Hamolka. Herkimer Hamolka. Wow.
I love that movie.
Well, I mean, Herkimer Hamolka. Wow. Mom and dad really hated you, you know?
You know, right? He had a terrible accent and he did it so well.
Herkimer Hamolka. I don't like it. Not a fan. Tim Curry's phenomenal.
Just don't name your kid that. Simple.
Now I don't have a choice otherwise. They'll be like, You have a beautiful baby girl. Name her Harkamo.
Herkimer.
Hamulker.
Her name's Herkimer, goddammit.
Herkimer. It'll be like years have gone by.
Herkimer,
and they're
middle
just
name
like,
Hermolka.
Herkimer, middle name Homolka. What is her middle name? Middle name Middle space Name. No caps.
Calls her the Herks for sure.
No caps. No caps,
No caps,
anywhere
yeah.
in that name. Except the E. Just the first E in Herkimer. Anyway. I think what other places are very weird? What other places did we look at this week as we were looking at our informations? I was looking at Siberia because not just Tunguska, you know, that one is like a natural event and everything, but they say that there are in that area these, they sound like stone turrets. They come up and out of the ground, and maybe they resonate, maybe they do something, and then they go back down. It's almost, you know, if you know, if it was Project Blue Book, I'd probably have to say, ladies and gentlemen, the swamp is pushing rocks up out of the swamp and then sinking them back down. It is a very natural thing. But, you know, I don't know. Maybe that is the truth of it. But apparently, these odd, like, legendary type thing is it continues, but no one can catch it. Obviously, you know, we're outside the 100-year cycle or whatever. But it's that is a stone thing that I looked at for a long time. The Siberia has some of the most interesting. Is it or is it not? You know, kind of megalithic.
Yeah, human or
structures.
not or non-human built kind
Yeah.
of a thing.
Is it like the one just off the coast of Japan, where some people want to say that is absolutely human engineering, and some people try to say it's not. You know, a lot of those not underwater, but above
Which
on
one was?
land.
Oh, the one under. Okay,
And I
I
feel
thought you were
horrible.
talking about the one underwater.
The one underwater by Japan. You know
The
that
new
one,
city
right?
that they just found.
I don't know about that, but it looks like a gigantic. The only thing I've ever seen is one gigantic boulder that, yes, does look like people chipped, you know, took slabs out of. It doesn't look like a city to me, but I'm not sure. Possibly you're looking at something else. Maybe
I'll look it up here.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up real quick.
but that's one where there's a lot of, you know, both sides. People want to say it's natural and why, and other people say obviously not, and look at this, you know. A lot of those similar type of controversial, you know, things happen up in Siberia. We don't hear a lot about all that area of the world as much as we probably should. It's a lot of, you know, it's a lot of land. It's a lot of land over in Russia and in like the Siberian area, and there's a lot of evidence that a lot of stuff happened there. A lot of humanity's past happened there too. You know, I mean, we see that everywhere, honestly, if you look. But 23,000 years ago, Brazil cave paintings. 23,000-year-old cave paintings in Brazil. So wherever you look, just keep looking. You can probably find humans tread here once upon a time. Even if this human got lost and died right here, he should have went the other way. Maybe somebody went there once, you know? Even before they were humans like we think of ourselves now, so grand with our telephones and stuff, you know? Like these.
Right. So advanced.
Yeah, I mean,
so advanced we can't figure out simple things. Stone movings.
Yeah, those past ancients, those
it's
fools.
Like, hang on, let me shoot it. Yeah, let me shoot a text to ask how someone moved this stone. So ironically stupid.
You know, we have the internet. I can find out what my friend who moved to Korea is eating for dinner right now, except it's probably breakfast time.
I just looked up the megalithic structure in Japan.
Oh, okay. There we go. Tell me about this.
It's that simple. Or no, I was saying it's that simple how much we have technology. They're saying it's one of the most precision cut megalithic structures in non-Europe. It's like super squared off. It's pretty interesting. It's underwater. It is gigantic, and it was discovered in the 50s, by the way.
It was discovered in the 50s. Okay. Yeah. I really like the caves in China, which are not caves even. They are just underground cuttings. There's like interesting patterns of how they carved it out. You know which ones I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah, I know what you're talking
I
about.
believe that they were flooded out for many years as well, and they were only discovered because someone was like, "Oh, you dare me to go jump in the well?" And they jumped in the well, and they were like, there's a city in there." And I was like, "What?" They're like, "Guys, it's not a joke." I guess that's what the deal was.
I mean, it's kind of what happened, like finding that city in the North Sea. Like they were
Mm-hmm.
out there just fishing and then got caught, and then now we're like, oh, let's go check around, see where there's some oil. They're like, holy crap, there's just been this whole city down here for how long? We never even looked. You know what I mean? And now they have all this technology where they can do echolocation and sound, all that stuff, and not disturb it as much as they want.
Yeah,
And now they're starting to dive actually down there, and literally like it's too murky to take pictures
yeah.
sometimes, but not always. But they're actually mapping it out now. There's a whole scientific community now from Denmark and from the UK that have joined together to go map it out because they're considering it Europe's Atlantis. You know what I mean?
I guess.
Not
Yeah,
exactly Atlantis, but
Europe's
Europe's version
Atlantis.
of Atlantis. Yeah, because they're
I think
saying it
that.
was so
Go on.
like
I'm just being
technologically
silly.
advanced because of the way that it's designed and the way that it's
Yeah.
it's perfectly placed in between the two countries. They think that at some point in time, either they figured out how to dam off that little area and stop the waves from coming through, or they were attempting to, and then it failed. And then also there's another controversial thing that they talk about. Once they found this, the nations of Denmark and UK are talking about damming off the North Sea so that way they can go and basically figure out, do a bunch of research and figure that out, which they're saying how horrible that would be for the environment, obviously.
I definitely don't like.
You can just Google UK and Denmark's mega dam.
Yeah, I don't like anytime they dam something. I don't like doing too much changing to whatever nature is like done at this point in time. Like I think we should find a way to like dredge or whatever. I don't know. Send underwater robots to pick things up. Make friends with the aliens in the abyss and ask them to go swimming in the sea for us. But I think that we cause problems when we start doing stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like that, like the places where we're gonna flood this whole valley here for this reason, and then later on something bad happens, and then you end up flooding the whole city you were trying to benefit by damming up that other
Well,
valley
it's
over
one of
there.
those things, it's like water finds a way, they say, you know what I
Of
mean?
course.
And when you're trying to stop water, like it's going to find the worst way possible that you weren't expecting.
Yeah. Absolutely. That I do know for sure.
I mean, they talk about water and fire being the most destructive powers on Earth, and
Absolutely.
water puts out fire.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Volcanoes are smothered by oceans. Don't forget that.
And do you know what happens when you mix like the acidity or the alkalinity of burnt ash into water? You end up getting some sort of an acidic or something that eats through rock. So
Right,
a,
exactly.
a
Acid
a
rain.
river of acid rain cutting a swath in it through a rock because
Right,
because
through a whole
because
channel or tunnel. Yeah.
because not only was water so powerful as to kill fire, but it became liquid hell now and just kept going. Water
Yeah,
is
unstoppable.
tough.
Yeah.
Again, it makes me think of a friend of ours we grew up with, and I thought he'd be able to swim better at that beach. He made it. He's fine. Anyone watching this
He
might.
survived.
He survived
Jesus.
just fine. Sorry, Mark. I mean, he was definitely shooken.
What was that beach called, by the way?
Shipwrecks.
Sounds inviting.
I thought it was a great place to be. Did watch a man get killed by a shark the week before then, but I
Not
thought I
not
told
Moana's
him.
Cove or anything simple and nice. It's
Yeah,
Shipwreck Beach.
it was piddle paddle puddle.
De- dead man's water.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's go take a dip.
it was the pitter patter puddle that I took him to. and I put his
Nemo,
floaties
Nemo's
on.
Cove, you know.
Yeah. And before he even went into the knee high water at most. No, I mean, no, yeah, he probably could have died very simply. I believe I was standing on the beach while our friend was struggling to keep his head above water. And then, I just remember like, and I look up and I see my friend and I go, his head's above water. He's
Those
doing
aren't
all
regular
right.
swimming
He's
splashings.
fine. No, he's doing all right. He's doing all right there. And I lay back down. I look up, I go, he's hanging out with surfers now. It's fine. Yeah. And he's alive.
And
And
then you heard the song go in your head.
hello, darkness, my old friend. Is that the one?
No, what's I think it's written by Sting or Genesis, one of the two guys who's talking about his friend dying in the ocean. Everybody thinks it's such a great song.
Wow. Which one is that? Tell me that's not Susu
Uh,
Studio.
no, I'll have to look it up really quick, but it's a really famous song that everybody thinks is like his great song, but he wrote it talking about his friend drowning. I think it's In the Air Tonight. Let me look it up real quick. Hang on.
In the Air Tonight from Phil Collins. Oh, wait, is that Can You Feel the Love Tonight? No, that's wow. Thanks, Disney. Thanks to Disney, I don't know what is a 90s cartoon song from Elton John or Phil Collins, or what's a Genesis or Sting song in the 80s.
Yeah, it's In the Air Tonight.
In the Air Tonight.
When you Google it, that's what shows up. I'm not sure if that's exactly true, if that's why he wrote it, but
See,
that's
and now I
the
know.
legend. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know that one now, of course. Are we allowed to do that? Well, I was
Yeah,
offbeat anyway.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
not our
see?
song. We don't own the rights to the song. Done.
Everything we do is parody anyway, except when we talk.
And we also said that it was Phil Collins anyway, so it's okay.
Wasn't it? Yeah, it was. Yeah, we definitely didn't make that up. I made up the concept of making up concepts, though. Someone proved me wrong. That right here is the way to dial in. You scan it.
Don't be bashful. Scan it.
I'm gonna double check myself actually, because you know what's always good? Finding out for sure. Oh wow! And you know what? I thought maybe I made it too small, but nah. This thing is like, we're gonna get you in, and then it says enter your display name. And let's see. Let's make sure if you hit space, okay, it works. You don't even have to put a name.
Throw a name
Zoinks.
in so we know who we're talking to. Throw a fake name in there.
Yeah, throw a
Even
fake
better.
name. You know, you'd be like, my name is, and then say something fake. See, that's how that would work. This is 9 Midnight teaching you how to lie to us.
To everyone.
And to
Not just
everyone.
us.
Well,
Anyone listening.
see, what I hope, if you give a man a lie, he's ruined for the day. But if you teach a man to lie, he can achieve anything.
He can grow to be the president of the United States.
I would like our it's exactly the first thing I was thinking of saying. I mean, obviously, but it was just so on the
when
nose.
That was like,
man, 2022.
When that was like the
are we
biggest
just
thing
bitter
you could
by
be?
nature? We're about to be like, it's gonna be 2005 again for the internet, where people are just so bitter and they're just like, bring on fucking hellfire again. I've been eating tinfoil because fuck it. What? You know, like, people are going to be weird all over again. And
well, I was just making the joke that that was the biggest thing back in the day. Like, you can be the president of the United States. Now it's like, you don't want to be the president of the United States. People make fun of you. People call you names and don't trust you, and don't do it. You know what I mean?
I think I may have said this before. I don't understand the point of like having to elect someone twice. Like, all right, you'll get 4, which is, I mean, how many times have we done this now? Nothing gets done in 4 years. Nothing.
Yeah, you're just barely cleaning up from the last guy. No matter who he was, the last guy's mistakes. 3 years in, you're like, okay, finally we finished that off.
Which, even if you are lucky enough to come off the heels of, you know, the person who you vibe with, you're like, you know what? I really hope that I just want to take that and keep that going. we also haven't seen that because again, I think it comes down to ego, right? Like I think that
Well, ego, yeah, and then Democratic parties, or not Democratic, what do you call it? Parties, political party. Thank you.
I just don't understand how, again, going back to that whole striving for a golden age mentality, how do we always act like things were better back in the old days, but then every time it's a new president, you want to say, like, the last guy ruined it and the guy before him ruined it too. And it's like, I used a certain accent. I didn't mean that particular accent. It could have been this accent. It could have been this one. Chowder, right?
I mean, I think funny enough, it comes back to like we were talking about these structures and things. Just because you can doesn't always mean you should, and just because you should doesn't mean you can.
I mean, there's opportunity, and then there's
like they're only the president; they're not the king. Something everyone always forgets.
No, that's true. You know what was really funny?
They're not the king. They're not the dictators. And if they were, we would have the Parthenon and a Colosseum.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? We wouldn't have this. Well, we do kind of have a White House, you know what I mean? Pretty big.
I don't think that we would even be allowed to consider them as human as we are. We would have to call them gods.
You couldn't look them in the eyes. I mean,
why not? Of course not.
That's how I would do it if I was. Never mind. Oh, this thing is live. Oh my God. Did you guys know?
Ding,
the mic tap.
Dong, dong.
Is this thing on? Is this thing on? Oh,
it is. It's on. It's on. Man, you just said something really funny that got my mind working, and then I lost it. It was, it happens that way sometimes, especially all the time. Didn't sleep well last night. I won't lie.
I said I would not let them look me in the eyes. Was the last thing I said.
I know, and it was like 3 lines before that. It was the "won't let them look me in the eyes" line that was so funny as to make me.
We would build we'd be building the Parthenon or the Colosseum.
Yes, that's right. Okay, so I had a job in L.A. I lived in L.A. for many years of Anyway. So as I was living in L.A., it was a couple times where it's one of the big cities in America, so the president of the United States would show up. And, they block off roads every time. Or, they do the same thing for the LA Marathon. I'm sure people hate the New York Marathon. Anytime there's a marathon, they shut down roads. It just happens, like there are certain times that they shut down a city. And I think, what is this, 2014 or 15? And I was like on Sunset Boulevard, and people were they were talking real shit about the president, but it wasn't about like policy. It wasn't about his actions as a politician and the things he's done. You'd be like, how fucking long it took me to get to work today? Jeez, I had to fucking go all the way. And then
a selfish me mentality,
Which, don't get me wrong, I understand. Yeah, it did take me the same amount of time. I also found out early because alarms, beep, 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 something pretty big going on tomorrow. Be prepared. Okay, fine. But I remember I was starting to chuckle because a bunch of people, they were like really like, yeah, over in the corner. And I started laughing. They're like, what? And I go, I don't know. It's just funny. Like, I see pictures and like videos of people lining the streets to wave. They just want the
just
president
to be seen. Yeah.
They just hope that the leader of their nation will maybe lay eyes on them, and they'll take the day off work. Hell, the whole city's shutting down. Don't you know?
The city's shut down.
Who's coming?
Exactly.
Don't you know?
It's coming through.
It's coming through.
Better than Santa Claus.
And it's like, it was like 2015, and everyone's like, motherfucker, it took me like an extra hour to get to work. It's like
there was a thing I was reading.
It was like ironic.
Killed kindness.
Convenience killed kindness. Right?
You know what I mean? That's what that is. Like, oh man, and everybody's in such a rush to hurry up to get to do the task that they forgot that the task was to help everyone else.
Our world is built on instant gratification in so many ways. Microtransactions in every video game. Every little thing you do has to have some sort of small measure. There's no more blue ribbons or giant, not unless you're actually in hockey. There's no
reasons
more
to build a megalith. You know what I mean? no reasons to. It's like, who cares? We have smaller, stupid problems.
And again, it's like, but that we blow out of huge proportion
Yeah,
everything. Don't get me wrong.
that
I'm
we
not saying
make
that
gigantic
people.
issues.
I'm not
Yeah.
saying people aren't important or anything, but like, if we would all stop like having to bitch and moan about every little thing. Don't get me wrong. I'm gonna bitch and moan about this right now. I'm gonna bitch and moan about like, why don't we all just start together? Hippie time.
Well, hence the reason why we are doing research in the 40s and 50s for things that we never think of doing now that it's not even important to us, i.e., going to space, making computers better. You
Ultimately,
know what I mean?
space
Working on
is
AI, all that sort of thing. Even these things that we're talking about, these megalithic, structures, they were researching them to find out the technology so we could use the technology nowadays. And
yeah.
it went by the wayside because we didn't need it, so it became something that was like, we don't need this. I have a computer, I have a saw that can cut it, so who cares? Even though it's like, man, we could improve on the saw if we knew how these people made a better saw or something. You know what I mean?
I
Like, it's
agree with
it's
that.
that simple. It's weird to me to think that we kind of pushed it to the wayside because of our, I don't want to say ignorance, but because of our own egos. We're like, wow, we're better than them though, so why do we need to do any more research about them? Or
It,
find out why these things were there.
don't have too many people like aspiring to be artisans. Does that make sense? People aren't people. I don't know. I'm gonna sound like as they say, a weebo, I guess. But that old, samurai mentality, of just like every little thing that they did, every movement had deliberacy, had purpose. Again, they assigned every movement, everything they did had a reason behind it. It was methodical and deliberate, from how they dressed themselves to how they poured their tea. It was all ritual. I'm not saying that I've got ADHD. I am enamored with anyone who has discipline at all. Honestly, it is like, wow, are you real? But that kind of discipline is
Right.
phenomenal, and eh, that is that's an appreciation of delayed gratification versus our world right now of and I'm just as guilty of, using my telephone to look up the answer always too, but that instant gratification, what is the difference between, sedimentary and igneous rock? Exactly. I don't have to ask someone. I've known a few geologists in my life. I don't have to keep their
But I
phone
think,
numbers, but
I think looking it up on your phone, not so bad of a thing because you actually took the time to look it up.
true, you did, but then we also know now we
You
live
didn't
in a
just go,
world where we
forget
have to
it.
question. Well, if you tell someone, "Hey, do you know what I found out about the difference between these two kinds of rock?" Where'd you read that? No, no, no.
Yeah, what source did you get that from? Yeah.
There's no more right or wrong. It's always different shades of gray, and it's more about the opinion and the consensus than it is about a hard fact. It's
Well,
like,
again, that's probably going to come down to ego. You know what I mean? Like, you can't read one place because, oh, there's fake news over there. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's always just perspective, as my favorite Jedi said, from a certain
Again,
point
we
of
are the
view,
giants.
my
Again, we
friend.
are the
I
giants.
know. We are the giants,
And these aren't megalithic. These are Lego blocks.
I
And
I still think Obi-Wan's in the desert just waiting.
wouldn't that be wild? Something to think about too.
He's
Not
coming.
Obi-Wan, sorry.
I know. I'm
No,
sorry.
like, if we were,
Just thought it was a good
obviously
one, yeah.
we get smaller. Your theory, we get smaller as we get older, right? So generationally, I guess.
I
Um,
know we were malnourished in the times leading up. It was hard. I mean, obviously, I think that, like, the 30, 40 years leading into the blight that took over the world and made everyone starve to death, I'm pretty sure something led up to that. Just like I'm pretty sure they had papyrus that helped them build the things. I think that there was like a gradual, people were having less and less nutrition for whatever reason. You look at these people and they are slight of frame
isn't
compared
that
to
just like
us.
isn't that just like a simple explanation? Like, what if there was just a guy who was 15 foot tall and he had the same strength and proportions because he was 15 foot tall as a man? and he would be able to move these rocks around if there was 100 of those guys.
Yeah,
You know what I
exactly. That
mean?
makes sense.
Like
No, that
super
does make
simple. Like
that does make perfect
okay,
sense. Yeah.
like that would just kill that would just kill the way that we look at science and the way that we look at man.
Well, that's
Like,
what
oh
they say
no,
in
actually
Malta.
that
In Malta,
yeah, yeah.
over in the
It's like, oh, these
Mediterranean
giant
again, they
yeah,
have
these giant people
tombs of
did these
giants.
things.
They say
Yeah.
they don't call them megalithic. Do you know what term they use over there in Greece?
No, what's that?
Cyclopean.
Oh,
Cyclopean.
Cyclopean. Yeah,
As
Cyclopean walls
built by
they
the
talk about,
Cyclops,
right?
right? Like they take for granted. That's their terminology. That's really cool. You know what I mean? To have that kind of mythology integrated into like your daily, I guess depending on where you walk to school, even who knows what you see in certain parts of the world.
Well, I
You
mean,
know what I mean?
mythology and quotations, really, you know.
I mean, it's surrounding you. You know that, except Ithaca. Apparently, that place probably sank, but Odysseus is probably still out there. I don't know what I'm talking about. What's the Iliad? Are you sick? Are you sick? No, me neither. That was a joke. Stupid. I do these dumb, silly jokes where I'll do like a rant, then a quick thing, then I'll circle back, and it's not even funny for me
It's
anymore.
called a callback joke, and then you're like, no, I didn't like that.
But it's like all in my own head. I'm gonna get there one day. I'll incorporate you, Elgin. I'm gonna incorporate the audience in my jokes. One
You'll
day,
let me in on it.
it'll be for all of us. Let's see. What else are you thinking, man? Any other places that popped out at you? Maybe on this side of the world, Americas.
Actually, that's one thing I was gonna talk to you about. Like, I was trying to look for something in North America, like really, really famous ones, and there isn't. There's just like little snippet things. I was like, man, that's kind of interesting. How either our culture is just not that old enough, or wasn't concerned with that sort of a thing. You know,
Well, there are, as far as the Americas, North and South America, definitely
I've
Central
been in
and South
North
America.
America mostly.
In North America, there is, I think, one of the largest settlements ever that they discovered. Okay, honestly, here's a really weird thing. Up north, over by Dallas, I believe it is east of Dallas, it is a town called Rockwall. If you look it up, the reason why they named this town Rockwall is because when they were building foundations, they were digging and they found this rock wall down there. And then they just, and it's all they can find is this wall, but it is obviously built to be a wall for X reason, XYZ, and it is ancient and it is
For
under the
wall
ground
reasoning.
for wall of our reasoning. You know what I mean? A hard, fast screw against the wall. That's a drink, kids. Yep, all my friends' kids. I think that I just had one of those brain skips again. I
Harvey
forgot,
Wallbanger.
which is not what I'm drinking. This is a yellow Red Bulger.
Right. You're talking about the wall in above or in Dallas.
Yeah, it's actually a city just to the east of it called Rockwall.
Rockwall. Gotcha.
Rockwall. And so if you look it up there, you'll see underneath. I don't know what they're doing with it, but I mean, who knows who built it? They have.
They don't have any idea, really?
I didn't look too much into it. When I was up in Dallas, I just kept thinking, wow, right there, that's where the president was shot. And then I was always thinking about Aurora, Texas, which was not too far, which is a little city outside of Dallas, north and then west, that supposedly in the late 1800s, a UFO crashed and they buried the body out there.
They buried the body of the alien? Crazy.
In Aurora, Texas. If you look up that story, yeah. And that's not megaliths or anything. That is, but supposedly crashed on the judge's property, and then they found the body of what was not one of us, and then they buried it in their church, cemetery with everything else. And then at some point in time, someone either, because of attempts to exhume it, they got rid of the headstone, or again, convenient story, but it's been around. It was in the newspapers. I think they proved it was a hoax, but they also said that, the UFO was just a weather balloon made out of tinfoil.
Always a weather balloon.
Always a weather balloon. You know what I mean? I remember that. No, that's a bad joke. I love you, honey. Yeah, no. It
I
was just like I was
was
just
like,
gonna.
oh, where's this one going?
It was just gonna be a dumb joke. It's like, it's like, my wife walked in the room and I was intimate with another woman, and then I was like, it was a weather balloon. She was just like, fucking weather balloons. She got on the phone with our governor right then and there. And I told her she was right to. I don't
She
know.
knew. She knew.
She probably doesn't. She's like, what are you talking about? That was like, uh, she probably isn't listening, but yeah, no, that joke, no, never. Yeah, she's too smart for that anyway. Double masters, genius,
Double masters.
double
Yeah, right.
masters.
Jesus Christ.
Shite. Genius face. I also know of a place in I can't remember exactly where. It's kind of it's like a square. I believe it's a square. Damn, it just lost my train of thought. And then yeah, I can't think of anywhere else in America off the top of my head either.
Yeah, it's kind of just a weird thing that I mean, maybe we just don't have enough ancient, culture here
Well,
for that. You know what
you
I mean?
know,
Like it's just maybe that's just a thing.
Georgia was trying to start something up until a couple weeks ago. Georgia you used to be able to tout this that they were, but did you hear that? I guess like right before all this happened, someone who's like running for office is like running for office on like the podium or on the of the platform of we're gonna tear down these guide stones, these godless whatever. I don't know. You know what I
I
mean?
did, yeah, yeah. They're like
Uh-huh.
satanic godstones and all
Mm-hmm.
that. Yeah, and he was rallying people behind it, and they try to blow it up. Someone went and tried to blow him up.
I mean, someone did blow
Didn't that
him up.
happen? Like
It
I was say,
happened.
didn't that happen
No, that
like
happened like 2 weeks ago. That's what I'm
a
saying.
couple weeks ago? Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
like just
They didn't blow
happened.
them like all the way down. They blew like one of them up,
They blew
cracked
and
one of them or whatever.
they destroyed one, I believe, and then they heavily
They
damaged the
vandalized,
rest.
yeah.
It's
They
it's
vandalized a bunch of them.
it's done now. They're gonna get rid of it because it's not like you can't repair it. It is just cement. You have to just make it again if you want it
Well,
that bad.
it's not even something that was like weird or interesting. It was someone made that. Like it was an artist installment. You know what I mean?
I mean, they have a lot of interesting, creepy. Ooh, what could it really be that
There's
brought
creepy
this
things written
here?
on it and stuff like that, but
Sure,
they know who the artist who did it or who put that up there.
they know the name of the person who commissioned it.
Right,
I
right.
mean, it's a great mystery for that little town to have had. I'm sure the tourism
Probably good
really
for tourism,
fucking
exactly.
helped. You know what I mean? I mean, tourism's great. You know what I mean? Oh,
I was
you
joking
guys
with one of my
care? You guys
customers.
care about us over here? Great.
Yeah, one of my
Buy a
customers.
shirt.
He
$26.99.
he works for the Bureau of Tourism here in Vegas,
Oh
and
wow.
he was like, yeah, man, thank God we got those 7 magic mountains,
Hand
because
over
like,
fist. Yeah.
yeah, he was like,
All
without
Magic
that,
Mountains.
nobody would have came out here. Well,
Yeah.
they literally put like stones up out in the middle of the desert. I don't know if you ever seen them, but speaking of megalithic things, they
Really.
put these big giant boulders on top of each other and then painted them rainbow colors so people could like drive out there and take Instagram pictures and stuff like that. It's an art installment too, but it's like they don't charge anyone for it. There's no reason to go out there, and it's hard to get to.
Yeah.
It's annoying to get to. You have to get off the freeway, go back up onto an old highway to get to it. It's annoying, and it's when you get there, you're like, oh, they're just painted stones. It's not something like, crazy or really, really super picture worthy or out in a beautiful area. It's just stones that are painted rainbow colors.
I
He was
mean,
like, thank God we have that thing.
we did that
Otherwise,
on the
there'd be
hillside
no
of our
reason.
school. Remember,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
the seniors got to go out to
He
the
was
rock and paint their year.
he was joking like, thank God we have that thing. Otherwise, there's no reason to come to Vegas, the city of sin and 7 magic mountains.
Right. Uh, Vegas is a very interesting place. I wonder about the name of it. Las Vegas means, like, in literal Spanish, I think it means the meadows. Maybe not
Yeah, the
Spanish.
meadows.
The meadows. It's a desert. How long ago was it named that it is remembered as the meadows? That's pretty wild. You know what I mean? but it is, I think it's a pretty cool spot. Some of those beautiful skylines I've ever seen in that town. I don't know what it is about the barometric pressure in that valley. Sky
It's
looks
because we're in
great from
a
all
we're in
angles.
a middle of a volcano. That's why a megalithic volcano that eventually
It's
is going to
noxious
erupt and
fumes. I've never
take in
enjoyed
the city.
Vegas. That's right. It's a terrible place. It's just the noxious fumes that make me like,
Yeah, they seep into you and they
yeah.
make you feel good. It's like being in the poppy field and Wizard of Oz.
It's like
Same kind of idea.
it's like if you're able to sneak in and sneak out with a little bit of the poppy field and then go into the center of the earth with Neo and Morpheus for that Zion party.
Right,
Yeah, that's what
exactly.
it's like.
Now you're having a good time.
Man,
Hold on, I gotta take this pill real quick.
I'm gonna turn the air on real quick. Everyone's getting sweaty. I'll get sweaty too. Hi, kids. We're
Right.
here to talk about megaliths. Did they just get sweaty? Were they compasses? Were they just great places to have a this year's orgy for whatever reason? I'm not going to blame any belief or mentality. I don't think they needed an excuse. I think it could have just been Tuesday.
Some like to your point, I wonder like if we are saying, okay, we're not sure if humans did it, right? If
I
our
I I feel
assumption
pretty confident, but go on.
if our assumption is okay, well, not our assumption, if we're trying to say that, okay, we're not sure humans could do that back then, are we trying to say that some other creature or force did this naturally or extraterrestrially? Because if it is extra, from somewhere else, why do they do it all over the place and in different ways? Does that make sense?
But also very similar as if they had all learned at the same school.
I mean, sort of. It's like either you're doing statues of people or you're doing big giant brick walls or brick, flooring or always
What
bricks.
about the keystones?
Like,
What about the keystones where they would have the metal ingots poured in between? They would have, to keep it. If you look up keystones, look up ancient keystones, you're going to find almost the same pattern of a metal inlay to hold together two. And you're going to find it in South America. You're going to find it in Egypt. You're going to find it in Siberia. I think they found it in Australia. Like, I here's where me, I guess my, and this isn't even this isn't me being able to, I wish I could make this one up. I think that human beings I think that we're basically human beings and we have been in a state like this, whether because of environmental factors or whatever. Maybe we got bigger sometimes when it was really cold and like we had to, because only the biggest people were surviving. So like, obviously, I'm sorry, Tiny Tim, but you don't get a mate because there's not enough
right.
mates. We're freezing to death. We have to breed the big
Only the
people to
strongest. Yeah.
survive. Like, if you have to think that way, or else there won't be another human being, then maybe after a couple hundred years of an ice age, we all look like what they want to say are Neanderthals. And maybe after other things, like I mean, whether you want to call it evolution or if you want to call it just, I mean, even just eugenics or just environmental factors, people just change, I think, ever so slightly. Ever so slightly. I think that we've basically been humans. I think that we probably had the ability to, to grasp scientific things, and we try hard. I think we try, and then sometimes maybe we reach too far. Like, I really think that I think Mohenjo-Daro was 1,000 or 1,500 years ago. That town probably was much more scientifically advanced than anyone will ever know, because everything blew up when the guy figured out how to split an atom.
Right. Went
And
too far. Yeah.
he went too far, and it is gone. I
Started up his own particle accelerator.
Exactly, but luckily now we know enough so that it didn't blow up, right? Like CERN was still there, after they flipped the switch, and then CERN was still there a couple of weeks ago after they flipped it again. But
Knock
maybe,
on wood.
yeah, but maybe 1500 years ago, over in Mohenjo-Daro, this guy, he didn't understand the magnetic resonance quite right, but he was on a whole other track. He was almost there. He was running where he should have been, tenderly checking the ground and split an atom with a hammer. Ding, 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 pop. And by town, by civilization, by the records of what our names were, our people, our land, what we cared about, our gods, our gone in a nuclear blast. If
Yeah,
that's
culture just wiped off.
completely, I think that's happened over and over. I think that the idea of Atlantis is is it's a theme, maybe not a specific place, but go look anywhere under the water. Go look anywhere under the water. By the way, we as humans, we know that the water's still rising. And where are all the most major civilizations, the most major cities still? Still,
Coastal.
why? Because it's so
Because we need
nice.
the water. Yeah.
Oh, the
Yeah, it's
salt
nice.
air. Don't get me wrong. I'm from Southern California. It's my favorite place to be. I want to go back there right now. And honestly, even if the big quake happens and in LA I fall into the ocean, I want to be there with LA when it happens. Anyway,
Well,
yeah.
something I was thinking too that came into my mind, like, with the whole water rising thing, the idea of that too is if it happens all, like, say if that happens once every so many thousands of years, right? Not necessarily that we're having polar ice caps. Well, yes, polar ice caps melting, but not necessarily like global warming, like we're thinking. Like the Earth, melts and then freezes back, and then melts and freezes back,
that, that
and
that's what the
it
fossil evidence
always,
shows. Like the evidence
you know what I
shows
mean? And
that.
yeah, like, and if it's always doing that, like these cultures that were, as advanced as they could have been, are because, like right now, like Denmark and um, what's the other city in Venice.
Venice,
Venice is flooded.
Italy.
Like it's going underwater. Like you can go there in tourism,
Yeah.
and they hand out galoshes so you can walk through the city. Like how sad is that? I mean, 30 years ago, the water level was way lower,
Yeah.
and people are disputing like, no, it's not rising. It's like Venice will be underwater. They're saying in less than 200-300 years will be underwater. They're saying Denmark will be underwater by 2050. They're saying that like their government is like, don't be prepared for generations to be here, because in 2050 this will be underwater.
I'm gonna
That's why they
say,
want to dam it. By the way, that the mega dam.
I mean, all right. If you have to save all of Denmark to build a dam, I kind of understand the
No, I'm okay with
motivation, but at the same time, yeah, like we were saying,
take the culture
the
and go somewhere
Atlantic is
else. It's
getting
fine.
bigger, and literally Hawaii is going to sprout up and become a gigantic tippity top, and Zealandia is going to come back out according to what they one map. I mean, they found it, like it actually is a continent. Zealandia is real. It's not like, I'm not saying that it was magic or anything, but like New Zealand is literally the top of a mountain. The rest of the continent is underwater.
Right, right.
And it's all underwater, and they have the Tuatara lives there. I wonder if they're still around. You know what the Tuatara is? It's like,
No, what's that?
it looks like a lizard, but I guess it is quite literally the last living dinosaur on the planet. It's about that big, I think. It looks like a little iguana. So like no one ever would have thought it was anything but a lizard. Anyway, you know what I mean? But I guess technically the genes are older than crocodiles. Like this is a pre-crocodile
Aren't
species.
sharks like supposed to be older than crocodiles too?
Yeah, sharks are
Like they're
way old
supposed to be
too.
living dinosaurs.
Older than dinosaurs even, like because
Yeah, yeah.
the as far as the evolutionary theory, because I think that fish were the first to form, right? Because we needed the extra, even though we now know
Right, right.
the air around us to be a fluid. I wonder what kind of creatures swim in that. No, flying doesn't count. That's different.
I mean, flying is all relative, but
I want to swim in the air. What was I saying? Yeah.
no,
So now
nothing
that
technically flies.
we falls with style.
Exactly.
Yeah. The
They fight against gravity, but that doesn't mean they fly.
So does a bird fly?
No, a bird doesn't fly.
So nothing
It can
flies. Nothing
nothing. If you think
flies.
about it,
Perfect.
that's a whole
That's
nother
it.
subject.
Where are we
We're
at?
getting way
No,
off.
no. I want to
Yeah.
find it. I want to. This is the clip right here. This is it. Where we? Okay, perfect.
Timestamp that.
Mm-hmm.
It's my what do you call it?
Nothing.
Conspiracy of the night.
Elgin comes in again, coming in hot. What was it?
By the word fly definition, yes, I guess, but by the theory of flying,
now he goes back. Now he goes
by the
back.
theory
First,
of flying,
nothing
is
flies.
it
Nothing has ever
is
flown.
it flying because it's pushing the air below it faster than the air over its wing? Does that constitute flying? Right? That's what we're saying.
I'm not an airline mechanic, but that sounds about as close as this layman brain is going to get. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, good. That's how we define it. Or is it something that doesn't need to fight against gravity? Is that something that flies?
You're talking about magic. We're not talking about a principle. You're talking about. Yeah. No. Things fly because Elgin is apparently saying the only thing that wouldn't fly is when Superman goes.
Yeah, he's not exactly. Superman flies.
No. Superman has Superman. He knows that you're supposed to. Where is it? First,
Superman doesn't defy gravity.
You touch that button right there. Where are we at? You touch that button right there, and then that brings down the drop-down menu, which some people are like, what are all these things? And then you type /no clip, and then that's all Superman did.
Superman doesn't defy gravity. He's not held down by gravity.
There is no Superman. Clark Kent figured out how to access the console.
How are these megaliths built is what I'm trying to say. Without Superman to help us build these.
The Cyclops.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I'll give you that. Never mind.
It was us.
You win.
See?
I believe in that more than Superman, funny enough.
I believe in Superman more than funny enough.
I refuse to believe in Superman.
I don't believe in Superman. I don't believe that he's real. And if I find out that he is like Tinkerbell, in which case I will have to be clapping for him to come back. Dress up like Tinkerbell, Soups, and we'll chat. All right.
I don't know if I want to challenge him like that, but I'm just saying I don't believe in it.
I'm just saying, provided I now have the ability to it's my clap, my approval he needs.
Oh, you're one of those clappists.
A clappist? I was thinking of it more like
right. The ancient Roman, Caesar and him.
Yeah, Joaquin Phoenix in Gladiator,
Right. That's funny.
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, I guess that is basically everything. I'm sure there's a lot more megaliths. There's more. We're going to find more as soon as another person has a shovel and wants to go over there, I don't know. What do you think? And that's what I think. I want to know too. With all of these megaliths, I think that it speaks to humans having a much bigger footprint on the time scale than people want to admit.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Every once you watch that YouTube, and I'll post it on our Instagram and Facebook to the YouTube. It all talks about how the reason why nobody wants to do these research on these things and really find it out is it will destroy our timeline. And it worries people in the scientific community and academic community. They're like, we don't want to destroy our knowledge of what we thought was correct. So let's not delve too deep in what we don't need to know.
Then you're not a scientist.
Well, yeah, I mean that's really what it comes to. Yeah, like
honestly,
if you can't be proven wrong, like I'm like your ego is way too big for the scientific community. You shouldn't be a scientist.
Yeah, you can't. You have to be more objective than that. I mean, there's nothing better than being wrong. If everyone freely admitted how wrong we were as soon as it happened, things would get done so much quicker. It's so great.
Yeah,
have you ever worked at a place where people are like, shit, my
humility.
Bad. Damn it.
Yep,
that was me. Sorry. That was me. I'm sorry.
How do I fix this? Help me with this.
Yeah. And you're just like, hey bud, come here. You're fine. Are
Yeah, don't worry,
you?
we'll
Are
help you
you?
with this. Yeah,
Are
you're
you?
more than happy to help somebody when they're humble and admit their faults, as
It
opposed to someone who's like, no, I would never do that. I didn't
couldn't
do
have been
that. That
me.
was wrong.
Nope.
You
Mm-mm. I
someone
know
someone else
better.
told me that.
I know better than that.
Then you're the then you become that guy at the job. You know what I mean?
So you're not a human. It's impossible that you could have ever made a mistake. Absolutely impossible. I just do not make mistakes.
I don't. I'm sorry, not me. Yeah, this is a good spot to end it at.
I believe so.
For sure. Yeah, I mean,
As we go, we're still hoping to bring on more people. We do have some other friends to be coming on, chat about certain subjects, and yeah, we're gonna dive deep into more things. We're just slowly getting into a lot of these topics. You know, we could have spent 2 hours talking about any one of these places.
yeah, I
You
mean, I think
know,
like next episode we're going to have a lot more deeper dive research. I know I have a couple ideas.
yeah,
I'll talk to you off camera or off podcast with it, and we'll dig into them and have a couple people call in. Actually, I know a couple people that probably will want to talk about them. So
yeah, absolutely. And so, as always, you know, write us 9midnight at gmail.com. If you have a story that maybe you want us to know, we could read it. Or if you want to be a guest, if you're interested, if there's something paranormal or weird, or, you know, hey, did you find a megalithic
or
structure
just
in
a
your
story,
backyard? Yeah,
yeah.
just a story, you know. Uh, Usually we're looking for something that's usually kind of weird, and
Odd, weird,
we
macabre
laugh.
doesn't matter to us. Yeah, we're interested. We're believers no matter what you say. I mean, I'm a skeptic of everything, and yet I believe in everything. It's that kind of a person. Like,
I,
I
I,
just,
I'm
you could always
torn.
tell me how.
I'm just torn.
Yeah.
I'm torn. You know, I play the video game on the dark side and then the light side. It's more fun the first time, but you know what I mean. Or the light side first, just in case. But you know what I mean. You got to play it both ways. Objection.
Right, exactly.
Objectivity. Objectivity.
Objectivity.
And all right. So tonight's conspiracy was Elgin does not believe anything flies unless it does it by so of its
it,
mental capacity, like
it defies
Kal-El
gravity.
of
It's not
Krypton.
flying. There's a difference.
And
You can you can defy gravity. It's not flying. I said it in the episode.
defying gravity
I
is
want a
not
mic drop, but
flying.
my mic's on this thing, so it's hard to drop it.
I like this. It looks like two portholes. Like, what if you are in there?
Right? Poke me right in the eye. Ah.
Yeah, you know, yeah. Wow. Anyway, everyone have a wonderful night that ends with, and all those things that you like. 30. E?
Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in again.
Mm-hmm.